Hey YouTube, Joyboy here. So today I want to talk about Big Mom's secret mythical creature. Now this theory is going to be mind-blowing for a lot of you, and there's some potential that it's true, but there is no doubt that it will be very controversial, and you'll understand why when I tell you the theory. But before I get into the theory, I do want to give a special thanks to @KintushiLucy, who is a follower on my Twitter, who gave me this idea like 2 days ago, but I was unable to do the video at that point in time because I was on vacation. But now that I'm off, I can do it. And actually, I googled it just be sure that somebody hadn't beaten me to it. And fun fact, someone did beat me to it approximately 24 hours before recording this video, and it is our friend Drittz of Oro Jackson. And this man is on fire. He's producing excellent theories, and he really thinks along the same wavelength as I do. But anyway guys, let me let you in on this gem of a theory. As we saw in the last chapter of One Piece, Big Mom has a book that is filled with many mythical creatures quote unquote. And so this is interesting on one side because there could be potentially some really cool creatures in here. But there's one particular creature which really has struck my interest, which is that inside this book there is a quote-unquote centaur. But if you have read One Piece and specifically read the Punk Hazard arc, you'll know that this centaur was actually just one of the people that was living on Punk Hazard working for Caesar. And as you should know, that the reason that they are centaurs is because their legs stopped working, and basically Law used his ability to perform surgery to basically mix and match them with animals. And the majority of them ended up being half goat, half human. But what's most important is Big Mom somehow found this person from Punk Hazard and confused them as centaurs. And so why is this interesting? Well, there is a very controversial character that many people think is dead. Other people think that she is alive, but certainly the debate has not stopped on her. But she is also a quote-unquote mythical creature that was mixed and matched using Law's powers. And who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about Monet. Monet, the woman who could very easily be confused as a harpy. And if she is alive, she could very well be inside of this book. And if this is the case, guys, this would be so fucking hype. Just like ridiculously hype. People have been talking about Monet returning for the longest time, but there hasn't really been a good situation for her to actually return. Now we finally have the perfect setup. If Monet is ever going to return to the story, this would be the point. And so if you didn't know, Monet also has quite a large following for people who think that she will be a future Nakama of the Straw Hats. For reasons which I will also get into a little bit later in this video. But for those who did think that in the past, or still currently think that, now is your opportunity to argue it. If Monet is indeed stuck in the book right now, then there's really only one thing that I could really see happening, which is that she would somehow get freed from the book, and if this does end up happening, she would have to become a friend of the Straw Hats. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. This expression would be 100% true in this case, at the very least. But anyway guys, before you can actually believe this, I need to get as many of you on the train as possible in the idea that Monet is still alive, because as far as I'm aware, there seems to be about a 50-50 split among the community as to whether she is alive or dead. But for those of you who may have forgotten why we think that she died, well, it's pretty simple. It appears as though Caesar stabbed her directly in the heart. And then from this point in time, many people argue, no matter how often a character may survive with gruesome injuries, a stab to the heart is a stab to the heart. You just don't survive that. And if that somehow didn't kill her, then the poison gas afterwards definitely would have done the trick in a lot of people's opinions. And so realistically speaking, these people are correct. There's really no realistic way in which Monet survived. However, we are reading One Piece, and there's several themes that exist within One Piece which would allow for her to have somehow survived. All of these basically boil down to precedents set within One Piece, but basically there's been a history of a lot of characters seemingly having died. but yet they didn't die. They reappeared later in the story somehow miraculously, having survived whatever calamity that befell them that should have killed them. Some of the best examples of this are like Pell from the Alabasta arc. He basically took a nuke, flew a nuke up into the sky, it went off. Everyone assumed Pell must have died. Everyone in that chapter, as well as at the end of the arc, assumed Pell died. But then later on, we see in a cover story that Pell did indeed survive, and the explanation for this is not even given. Another great example of this is Bellamy. After Luffy defeated Bellamy in the Jaya arc, we can see him and his story later on where Doflamingo appears with him and his crew still in Jaya and basically forced them into a death match where he says, quote unquote, that they were no longer needed. And then we can see him walking away with the rest of his crew in terror. The clear assumption to make in this situation is that Bellamy must have been killed. But as you could see clearly later in the Dressrosa arc, Bellamy was still alive. And so while in Monet's case she did get stabbed in the heart, and that would seem like automatic death for anyone, in One Piece, injuries do not equal death, no matter how serious they are. There's just characters survive some ridiculously brutal injuries, such as Law losing his arm in the Dressrosa arc. Like, realistically speaking, losing your arm and bleeding out for the amount of time Law did should have resulted in his death, but it didn't. So while a stab to the heart might seem automatically fatal, it doesn't necessarily have to be the case if Oda wants to reintroduce the character later. And so all of this ties back into a huge theme in One Piece, which is that if you think about all the villains, major villains or minor villains that have ever existed in the story of One Piece, you'll notice something interesting. None of them have ever died. At least up until the point to where we got to the Punk Hazard arc with Monet and Virgo, both of which many people assumed to be dead. But before this point in time, no one died, with the exception of, I believe, Mr. 11 from Baroque Works. He was the only character that was a minor villain that was confirmed to be killed. Everyone else survived. And so it's speculative to guess exactly why this is the case, but I think the general premise that we can take from this is that One Piece is, for the most part, a light-hearted journey. It's a light-hearted story, and I don't believe Oda wants to take it in that particular direction, in which lots of characters end up dying for really no purpose whatsoever. And so Oda seems to be following by these rules. If a character is to die within the story of One Piece, they have to die. There has to be actual plot reasons why they have to die. And so with this being said, it would potentially explain why the only two characters to have actually been confirmed to be killed within the actual timeline of the story, not including flashbacks, would have been Whitebeard and Ace, both of which had very specific reasons why, plot-wise, they needed to die. Whitebeard needed to die in order to usher in the new era, and Ace needed to die in order to justify the 2-year time skip. These are plot reasons why these characters have to die, and are the only two confirmed kills within One Piece. Also interesting to note that they are not villains either, they were both allies, or friends. And so a lot of people argue that the new world is just going to be different from the world of One Piece that we saw in pre-time skip, which is that given the stakes now for the new world, Oda is now making the new world more dangerous, and therefore in order to convey this dangerousness to us readers, then some random characters will have to be killed at some point in time. A lot of people make that argument as to, why that was the reason why Virgo and Monet both were killed. However, I want to throw this in here as well, which is that, and this severely, I believe, debunks this particular idea, is that we've actually gotten further into the new world now. We've gotten to Dressrosa, and we've gotten to Zoe and part of Whole Cake Island, and as of right now, there really hasn't been any more character deaths with the exception of Mr. Moscato, or Charlotte Moscato of the Big Mom Pirates, which his death is also incredibly controversial. If Oda really wanted to hammer in the danger of the new world, then he had plenty of characters who he could have potentially killed off from the Punk Hazard arc up until the Whole Cake Island arc. You have many of the minks who, while being tortured and lost their limbs, still survived. You have many of the Don Quixote Doflamingo pirates, including Doflamingo himself, who could have also been killed. And then all of this would have added to the general perception that the new world is dangerous, but this is not the case. Monet and Virgo's death at this point in time, it still does not fit the pattern. So seemingly at this point in time, Monet and Virgo died in vain with no real overall purpose towards the plot. And so because of this, I don't believe either character died. And so looking into this theory with the possibility that Monet may actually reappear alive as a captured mythical creature in Big Mom's book, for me, makes a lot of sense. And so going even deeper into this, there are a lot of people that wanted Monet as part of the Straw Hat crew. And the main reason why they thought that this was possible, above any other reason, is that we got some really strange clues into Monet's interest within the actual story of One Piece, the actual chapters. Like, Oda usually gives characters interesting details in SBSs or interviews, but no, in the actual story of One Piece, we see Monet reading a book of astronomy. And guys, for a character of very little prominence within the story, that was not even important in the slightest when considering the scope of the arc itself, to throw in this Easter egg about her potential interest is just unprecedented, honestly. This by itself can be argued to give Monet the possibility of having more importance in the future of the story by itself. And so many people use this to argue that Monet may be a future member of the Straw Hat crew. Now guys, I don't want to ship this 100% because I don't think that I 100% believe that Monet is going to join the Straw Hat crew even if she returns to the story. But you should be guaranteed that if she does reappear in the Whole Cake Island arc, you will be hearing a lot about this. And you can be sure, just as like 2 years ago when Monet was first killed and people were speculating that it was possible that she could in fact become a Nakama, that there will be rage wars across the One Piece community. The opinions are so split on this topic because you have some people who are like, Monet is evil, she gave drugs to kids, she's clearly a villain. And on the other hand, people who speculate that no, she was just a subordinate of Doflamingo, she was doing what she was told, and that, you know, she's not inherently evil herself, she can be redeemed like every other villain in the story, and then with these other clues, she may in fact be a Nakama. But guys, before I move on, I do want to say this. There is a ton more evidence and discussion that has been had about Monet being a Nakama or being alive or dead. There is just an absolute ton of really in-depth posts with comments that are really informative that you can check out at your leisure to get a more full, complete picture about all the details that are going into forming people's opinions. I have not even scratched the surface as to the entirety of the debate. So don't look at it as sort of your one-stop shop for everything that you need to know, because honestly, if I included every single detail, you would be sitting here for about an hour. And the last thing that I want to talk about is I've actually finally read Drittz Erden's post on Oro Jackson, and so there's two things that interest me. The first thing is he provided additional evidence which I have not considered that I will be talking about, and additionally at the very end of his post, I just learned that he has a YouTube channel, which I will be also including in the description of this video. I suggest that you click on that and flock to his channel. Seriously. But going into the actual evidence he provided, he noticed something really interesting, which is that the creatures as revealed from Big Mom's book that we know are inside of there all have ties back to Greek mythology. And so why this would be interesting in regards to this particular theory is that the harpy also ties its origins back to Greek mythology. So Big Mom having a harpy would fit the current pattern of the kinds of creatures that she possesses within her book. But yeah guys, the talk about Monet being alive or dead or being a possible Nakama aside, this theory is honestly incredibly simple. Big Mom collects mythical creatures. Monet herself is an incredibly rare creature that we have not seen in the world of One Piece at all aside from herself. She's a natural harpy, but still, Big Mom having confused the centaurs, the fake centaurs as centaurs, could lead to the conclusion that she would see Monet as a real harpy despite the fact that she's not. And so may very well have collected her, given that she definitely visited Punk Hazard at some point in time in order to collect the centaur. But yeah guys, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or disagree and why. And try not to flame the comments just because you think Monet is 100% dead and you argued this years ago and it's now creeping back up and you're tired of it. I don't want to see any of that, but I expect to see it regardless of what I say, so there's really even no point in including that. But try and keep as much of the debate civil as possible. There's a lot of new One Piece fans who weren't around 2 years ago on the forums to have the same debates and discussions that some of you may have had repeatedly and have gotten tired of. And this might be completely new to them. So just keep that in mind. Like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video, subscribe if you haven't, and as always guys, have a wonderful day.